do all of you have a copy. Because what I'll be doing right now is I'll be running you through some of the results, well, all of the results in fact, and some of the rationales that went behind selecting some of the parameters that we saw, some of the pillars that we developed for the application economy, and what CA Technologies is probably going to be using this for. The question that we asked is, oh, okay, I need the clicker, right? Yes, thank you. Okay, that's really all about me. I introduced myself to a couple of you guys earlier. I will be still available later on, so I'm happy to be answering questions that you have about the study. And if you actually have any questions right now, I would be more than happy to have a dialogue with you. Because I think sometimes it's easier if you're looking through the results right now and you have questions, just raise your hand, shout it out. I'm happy to discuss it with you. I'm with a company called TRPC. We've got about 25 years, actually going on 30 right now, years of experience working in Asia Pacific, throughout the region, discussing things like the digital economy, telecommunications, and information technology. So I'm the managing director for the company, and I've had over a decade worth of experience in public policy, in ICT, so I'd be happy, again, to speak with you about the index and about anything else that you'd like to speak about when it comes to information technology, cloud technology within the Asia Pacific. Now, the application economy. I think that journalists are at the cutting edge of all information and technology devices. You know why? Because all of you have got to get onto planes and you have got to carry these devices with you. And I remember some of my friends, and I remember them having to phone in their stories or wire in their stories a long, long time to get in before deadline. And then when laptops came along, journalists were the first people to start carrying them around. Why? Because they will allow you to take the stories with you, to type out the stories, and then send them off via the internet. And that's what happened. We saw that as Internet 1.0, the internet economy. What we have moved towards is the digital economy, where you have, once again, moved from the desktop to the laptops. And that gave a lot more mobility to people. There were a lot more options that were available to everybody. What we're seeing right now, this is where CA Technologies and TRPC really started the journey, is that we are realizing that today's Internet 3.0, today's internet economy, today's digital economy is no longer truly just a digital economy. It's moved from being a desktop-based economy, a laptop-based economy, to truly being an application economy. Everybody here's moved on to mobile devices. I mean, I can see from a glance around the room that a lot of people are no longer on laptops, but really are on smart devices, mobile devices, what do you call them, tablets. And you moved away actually from what we see as the digital economy. What drives the next stage of growth for Asia Pacific? What's going to impact that stage of growth? That's the questions that we asked. We know people are moving onto mobile, but how will that impact ratings and rankings? So we asked ourselves what exactly went into what we see right now as the digital economy and moving into the application economy. We identified 3 pillars, as Ken has already mentioned, 3 pillars that impact those, where people stand in the application economy right now. So we took a look at government use and support of technology and innovation. That's very important for countries like Singapore, for countries like Korea, for countries like Japan. A lot of times, actually, a lot of innovation is driven by the government. Once the government supports it, I'm Singaporean, by the way, so I can speak from my experience with the Singapore government. Once the Singapore government says, Smart Nation program is going to be going on. We're going to have an Infocom Media Management Master Plan. Once we have a Cyber Security Master Plan, you know that the whole entire ecosystem is going to react fairly positively and looking at that adoption. South Korea has gotten into the act as well. They've got a new Cloud Computing Promotion Act that came out last year, right? This is in March of last year, and it was implemented sometime in September, I believe. Of last year, and that's going to impact the way that people are in the economy are going to be looking at deploying and using technology. So government use and support of technology and innovation is very important. The strength of intellectual property protection, also very important. You want to make sure that your intellectual property can be protected in a particular economy, because if not, why bother innovating? Why bother thinking about new ideas? Which is, again, why we went into the third factor in this pillar, innovation. How well are companies in a particular economy innovating? Are they throwing out new ideas? We looked at publicly available sources for the data. All right, so just to, all of the data that you see available here, and the next slide will be about the results. All the data that we received here was from publicly available resources. The sources came from the World Economics Forum's Global Information Technology Report 2015, global, let me see, well, cybersecurity, later on here. Oh dear. Strength of cybersecurity and business agility came from the Cybersecurity Index, also by ITU and the ABI Research, for example. Innovation came from the Global Innovation Report by WIPO and INSEAD. So all of these are all available on public record. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar, internet and mobile infrastructure. I think this goes without saying that in order to succeed in the digital economy, in the application economy, you will need to have strong, stable internet support. So you see internet penetration there, average mobile connection speed, smartphone penetration in that particular pillar. The third pillar that we believe is important for success in the application economy is business agility. How quickly do you take to set up a business in a country? What's your debit card penetration and credit card penetration in a country? How are your mobile payments? Is it easy for people to transact in an economy? And how good is your cybersecurity? Security and privacy issues are extremely important. They are going to continue to be important in the discussions for the application economy, which is why we put them into the third pillar, business agility. So these are the three pillars that we have for the application economy as of right now. So we took a snapshot of the region. We took a snapshot of the region and how they performed, and these, okay, this is the data credibility, and these are the results. I apologize, this is a little bit small. I believe that the report does have a much more legible image here, but you can see across the board where the disruptors are, the leaders of the application economy are at the moment, who the challengers are, and who the mainstream countries are here. So I think that the results here, and when we first presented them to CA Technologies, the question really was, actually this is nothing new, right? This is really where the countries stand today. Is it indicative of the future? Because as technologists and as people like yourselves who are looking at trends in technology, you want to look at where things stand now, but you also want to look a little bit into the future. You want to project and you want to say, where will growth come from? What's going to impact growth? What's going to help propel economies into this application economy? So we looked at a couple of other factors. We call them we'll call them the multiplier effect, essentially. We're looking at number of smartphone users in the market. We looked at the daily general mobile internet use. We looked at the use of virtual social networks in a country. We looked at the daily use of apps, and then we looked at the youth demographic scores. We looked at these factors as a new set of rules. We think that these factors, we call them market potential accelerators or MPAs. These are going to accelerate a particular country's performance in the application economy. And this can be within the next 5 years, it could be within the next 3 years, it could be within the next 2, we don't quite know yet. But we believe very strongly that these factors are going to impact how people are going to accelerate, how countries are going to accelerate. So you can see at a glance on the left side of the screen here, how countries have adjusted, how the scores of countries have adjusted. We've looked at China and India, from the 7th and the 9th rank respectively, jumping straight up to the top as accelerated economies, because we think that there's lots of opportunity there for China and for India to be accelerating. China, for example, I know, just talking about master plans, I do know that you have the Internet Plus master plan that has come out. India, of course, has the digital India master plan, and also has Make in India, I believe, that is driving a lot of local industries to the forefront of people's mindsets at the moment. For Indonesia, you can also see from number 10, which is the last spot, it's jumped right up to number 3. Their accelerator index is +7. They've moved up 7 spots. And this is quite interesting because we know that Indonesia is one of those countries which is going to leapfrog from literally no technology. You could actually be somebody who does not have a computer, and you're going to leapfrog straight into the mobile economy, because you're not going to, your first computer is going to be your mobile phone, or it's going to be your tablet. That's Indonesia for you. So that market has a lot of potential. Where we see some people having risks is Singapore, dropping from the first spot to the 3rd spot. Primarily, probably because it doesn't really have a huge market for smartphone users. You can see that they're actually 10th in, I'm going to point it here, 10th. It's ranked 10th in the entire region for complete number of smartphone users. So small market there. Also aging population. I think it shares that conundrum, I think, with Japan, which is rather unfortunate, dropped from the 4th spot to the 10th spot. And these are the risks that we've identified in the Asia-Pacific markets. When it comes to the application economy, when it comes to market potential accelerators, there are risks. There are huge, huge risks, because people will need to move very, very quickly in order to capitalize on the opportunities that the application economy does bring to them. So right now I'm gonna pause right now before I move on to the individual markets. I'm gonna pause right now to answer any questions that you have on the results.
What's the relative weights of the factors when you compute?
There are no weights. To make it simple, there are no weights, because if we did weights, we initially did weights, but then we had to justify the weights. So there was no real justification, so we just evened it out. Anyone have any other questions? Oh, sorry, you need a chance.
스마트폰 유저라는 게 단순히 인구 절대치로
It's the absolute figure.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I guess.
What is it?
It's the absolute number of, is the absolute figure of smartphone users in a country. The market size will be very, very, very important, because at this point in time, if you think about, Ken mentioned Grab taxi. You've also seen the success of Facebook. You've also seen the success of Airbnb. The success in the application economy at this point in time is, you need to go in there right now and you need to grab user base. You need to grab first mover advantage. You need to grab as big a community as you can. Okay? Let me tell you why. The apps today on your phone are the gateway to the internet. The same way that the internet, that the web browser was the gateway to the internet during the desktop days. Previously, before the apps on the phone came up, if you wanted to visit some place like Facebook, for example, you would go to www.facebook.com and you'd enter the site using a website. You use a web browser to get onto the internet. Today, you don't do that. Today, you go into your app, you press the Facebook app, and that's it. It's gone to the point that I believe that there was a research company that did research in Indonesia, and they asked some Indonesians, "Do you have the internet?" And then they said, "No, we don't have the internet. My phone is we don't have the internet. The phone is not connected to the internet." They asked the same people, "Do you have Facebook? Do you connect to Facebook?" They said, yes, absolutely, I have Facebook. So people are starting to disassociate apps with access to the internet. And that's where we see a fundamental shift happening. That's why the application economy is so important. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Alex from IT Wire in Australia. We have issues with Facebook where the app is just too much of a battery hog. and people are now uninstalling the app to go back to the website
Mhm.
because they don't want to be tracked by the app. They're sick of the clicking yes to buttons that say, I want to have my microphone, access to my microphone or camera.
Yep.
Because on Android at least, it's very ambiguously worded.
Absolutely.
If Facebook has access to my app, to my camera, are they taking photographs? What are they doing? So, I mean, I wouldn't discount the web app as yet. I mean, the iPhone originally had no apps, but Steve Jobs was very adamant in explaining that, well, it's a web app. And so, I mean, what do you say to that? And this trend of people who are, on purpose getting rid of Facebook because it's actually not damaging their app. They're not unhappy with the app itself. They love the app, but it's damaging their enjoyment of their smartphone by just chewing through too much battery and being too heavy on the phone and collecting all this crud that you have to then delete. And you can get gigabytes back if on your iPhone, especially if you delete it. I mean, what do you say to that?
That's an excellent point, but you make the point for the application economy very quickly, very well. Ken mentioned the importance of innovation, the importance of being agile in this economy, and that's exactly what people need to do. If I were Facebook and if I heard about that, I would need to talk to people and talk to my developers and say, this is a major complaint. People are actually uninstalling my app because it needs too much battery, has too much data, etc. Let's just switch it off and delete it. You as a company, you need to move really quickly to deploy a solution to that. You need to re-engineer your code, you need to rewrite your app in some way, or you need to find some way of tweaking so that you stop that bleed of people. So I think that you make the point actually exactly right. It's true that the apps have issues, and people are very quick to uninstall apps. Once you try once. I think CA Technologies has another, Kelly, remind me again the title of that study. CA Technologies has a wonderful study that says that if your app takes more than 6 seconds to respond, people just delete it.
If it takes more than 6 seconds, it's probably going to be 6 feet under.
Exactly. So it's a wonderful study, and it's based on research, right? So that's something which is extremely, it's incredible. The stakes are that high, 6 seconds. And people have no tolerance for your app, really. Interesting phenomenon in Japan. Let me finish this point and I'll take your question. An interesting phenomenon at this point in Japan. Japan has, and I'm sorry, where are our Japanese colleagues from here? I think that the phones that you have are called garakire. Garakire. Japan has a very fascinating case study, which I had a little bit of a throwaway line in the Japan write-up. They've got these garakiri phones, which look like flip phones. The old Motorola Razr phones that you had of old. They have a phenomenon called the garakiri, which is basically stripped down to the basics of what a phone can do. It'll phone, it'll text, it'll email. But it also has very specific low data eating apps for Line, for example. And that's it. It won't have anything else. Why? Because data is very expensive in Japan. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is that true? Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing the gentleman nod that data is very expensive. So it's important to actually be able to, number one, change very quickly to your point, to market preferences, and also to be very agile so that you can actually have an app for a specific market quirks, shall we say, such as in Japan. I'm sure that the Singapore market also has quirks. I'm sure that the India market has its own quirks. So I know that India, for example, many people have multiple SIMs because of the, I do know some of my friends, they tell me, if you want to call me between what time, this in the morning, you call this number. If you want to call me in the evening, it's this number, because there are different tariff rates. And as somebody who's working in the application economy, if you're developing an app for that kind of market, that sort of intelligence, that sort of ability to move quickly enough is extremely important. I'm sorry, I understand that there's...
Yeah, you first. Yes, please. Sorry.
Hi, this is Yashwendra from Business World, India.
Yes, sir.
So the Chinese economy is in a turmoil, and even the near-term outlook is not too rosy. So how are you so optimistic of China reaching #1 from down below? As far as India is concerned, India is pretty insulated from the economic turmoil, and we're also a young population. So I can understand the movement of India to second position. But China, can you throw a little bit more light on
Are you sure you're allowed to diss China in that way? I think that the sheer number of people in China is going to be a huge factor. I feel when I quit my previous job like 5 years ago, and I went backpacking in China for 2 months. Fantastic experience, but you go there and then it's mind-boggling how huge the country is. The sheer number of people that are there, the sheer number of people who will buy a mobile phone alone. Let's not even talk about data. That's going to be huge. That impact is huge, and I think that I can't discount the fact, or we can't discount the fact that there will be a lot of domestic opportunities. They have a huge domestic market, as with India, that could propel that growth as well into the digital economy. So I can't really speak too much about the economic turmoil as you speak. I think that I think that growth is slowing down. That doesn't discount the opportunities. Just makes the risk factor a little bit higher.
Hi,
Hi.
Victor from Amans.net Malaysia.
Hi.
I just want to clarify the charts behind you, right?
Yes.
The absolute rating is out of 10, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then second thing is, can you help define what is accelerators, achievers, and incubators? Because it's quite interesting to see that Malaysia and Japan are ranked together
Mhm.
in incubators, whereas Japan's closest neighbor China is right at the top, right?
Mhm.
So how the contrast is so apparent. How does that work?
So the idea is really to make sure that we ban okay, so this is the complete application economy or market potential score. It's really the banding of countries, so that you can see that I think that we've got clear people who are in the lead, people who are in the middle band, and people who are groups of countries, shall we say, in the final band. And it's really about simply banding the countries, because we don't just want people to just focus on the absolute rankings, but just to see that actually maybe these are certain characteristics which these two markets share that will impact how they will be reacting and performing in the application economy. So in that sense, Malaysia and Japan are sort of ranked together. So you can see that, for example, for Japan, they've got great scores with daily general mobile internet use, and that, for example, Malaysia has pretty poor scores, poorer scores in this.
So the contrast is so apparent, right? How does that work? How are they? What does incubator mean exactly?
Incubators it's simply our name for that particular band.
Right.
Yeah, because it is important to understand that these scores are not something that condemns, that says too bad, game over, like what Ken mentioned. It's over for you, and we don't want to be simply just dismissive of the economy. Because one important point, which I will come back always to, the application economy, the risks are there, the opportunities are there. Early mover advantage is very important, is very key. If you can overcome some of these indicators which we and CA Technologies have identified, if you can overcome these risks that we're identifying, and I'll go into the country reports in a minute, if you can identify the opportunities and the risks, and you can minimize the risks and capitalize on the opportunities, then my chart won't make a lot of sense next year already, because things are moving that quickly. Sure.
Hi, I'm asking on behalf of.
Sure, no problem.
I'm not good at English, so that's it.
No problem, no
It
problem.
looks as though, according to the table, the population size is the most determining factor to the potential, the overall potential.
Mhm.
How should a country with a small size boost the potential?
We have opportunities that exist within accelerator units. I definitely would not discount small countries. Singapore is a great example, so is Japan. And actually, relative to China, for example, I think that there are a lot of international brands which have come up from smaller countries. So I think that in terms of what we're looking at right now, population size and the sheer size of the number of smartphone users for now, as of today, is going to be a very big determining factor for the mobile economy, for the application economy. Now, what will happen next year? Next year, I don't know, maybe holograms and 3D, and I know that Mobile World Congress is on now in Barcelona. I saw this photograph of Mark Zuckerberg walking by a whole bunch of people and journalists who were sitting beside, and they were wearing the can't remember what it's called. It's the
Oculus.
The Oculus, thank you. Yeah, the Oculus. And it was, maybe next year, people will just stop using mobile phones and they'll use the Oculus. I don't know. We don't know the future. At this point in time, it looks like that's going to be a huge determining factor. We're more than happy to be considering, I'm as a researcher, I'm much more than happy to be considering what other suggestions you have for measuring the potential of an economy to accelerate in the application economy. Okay. Let me just stop right here and let me just run through really quickly each of the country studies that we had for their results, what's noteworthy, some of the opportunities, some of the risks that each country has. So the first in the list was Singapore. Their current application economy index rank is number 1, and their accelerator rank is number 4. So obviously they dropped 4 spots. They've consistently scored, and this is where I take off my Singaporean hat, I'm going to call them they. They've consistently scored strongly in all of the categories, especially in Pillar 1, government use in support of technology and innovation. And I've mentioned a number of the government policies which have emerged in recent times of government use in support of technology. The challenges that Singapore faces really are that the state of the mobile market is very mature. There are few, if there are not many local challenges, not local players in the market. A lot of times the trends in Singapore do follow the international market's trends. It's a relatively small population of smartphone users, 4.8 million. That might increase or decrease a little bit, but given that the maximum number of people that that Singapore wants to have in the country is about 6 million, I don't think that we're going to be growing far more than that. Opportunities are that there's great statistics for daily mobile use, great virtual social network use. They're very pro-government policies. You'll also notice, for those of you following the Singapore market, is that the Singapore government itself is trying to innovate because they've just recently merged the regulators, the Media Development Authority of Singapore, which regulates the content side of things, and the Infocom Development Authority, the IDA, which regulates the telco side of things, have just recently merged as well. So that's all very positive in that sense for Singapore. But again, challenges remain. For Australia, which is number 2 in the application economy index rank, they dropped to number 8 after market potential accelerators are factored into their scores. Again, they score very well across all categories, especially in internet and mobile infrastructure. When I showed this to a couple of Australians, especially those who are staying not in the center of town or in Sydney or in Melbourne, people were laughing at me because our internet connectivity isn't really that great. But across the board, generally, if you look at the average users' mobile connection speeds, it's actually not too bad. They come in third for average mobile connection speed, and internet penetration is actually pretty good compared to the rest of the region. Some of the challenges really are intellectual property protection, where they come out fourth. Not too bad still, but kind of like a question mark when it comes to a mature market in that sense. Mobile payment readiness index is 5th, so not a lot of people can actually use the internet to pay for things. It's not frictionless quite yet. And it's ranked 8th in the ratio of its youth population to the overall population. So it looks like a big, we're highlighting that there could be an aging population issue happening in Australia. In terms of the opportunities that they have, the use of virtual social networks like Facebook is extremely huge, so that's an opportunity for them. For China, scored 7th, but accelerated to the 1st position in the Market Potential Acceleration Index. What's noteworthy is that they had very good mid-level scores, I think, for government use in support of technology and innovation. So government use of technology, they came in 7th, IP protection 5th, innovation 6th. And these were quite positive. Unfortunately, they have the weakest scores in business agility, which is in Pillar 3. The time taken to set up a business in China is pretty long. They came in 9th in terms of the strength of cybersecurity, and the mobile payments readiness index, not too bad actually, was 4th, but couldn't, in Pillar 3, couldn't overcome the poor scores that they had in the other 2 factors. Some of the opportunities, again, is that the government is very, very pro-technology, is very, very pro-innovation. They've got the Internet Plus strategy. I know that they've got a cloud computing and big data and IoT master plan that's come out recently. There are more than 1 billion smartphone users as well in China. 93% of them access some sort of smartphone application on a daily basis, which is really, really huge. And the China market is interesting from my perspective, from a statistical perspective, because there may not always be enough data to make proper conclusions. So to give you an example, when we were looking at use of virtual social networks statistics, many people calculated how many people were on Facebook or on Twitter. But as we all know, Facebook isn't allowed in China. So you can't use that statistic. So it's a little bit difficult, from a China perspective, from a researcher perspective to actually get scores for China, but that doesn't discount the fact that we did manage to find some scores, and we think that there are lots of opportunities just in terms of sheer size for the China market. For Hong Kong, scored 5th in the index currently, and looks like it's going to be holding steady at number 5 as well. They have, again, a very forward-looking government. The challenges are relatively small population size and small youth demographics. They came in 9th for both of those. In terms of the opportunity, they have a high level of people there who have got expertise in the market, ICTs, smartphone users, a lot of people who are pretty innovative. As you can see, innovation, they came in 2nd, right on top. There a lot of people use mobile internet on a daily basis, on apps on a daily basis, and they were ranked 3rd in the region for the use of social networks. So lots of opportunities there. Question for Hong Kong is really, do they want to accelerate past that? Do they actually want to jump up a little bit more rather than staying still? For India, I know that our friends here will probably be interested in this slide. Index rank, number 9, jumped up to number 2. And acceleration index of +7 in terms of the scores. Unfortunately, got consistently low scores across most of the parameters. And some of the challenges, again, as I mentioned, very unique mobile phone tariff regime, which is kind of complicated for people to be going in. In addition, there are interesting, there's a very loud, vociferous, I think, civil society sector. For those of you who aren't aware, India's TRAI, the Telecom Regulation Authority of India, recently ruled that net neutrality principles would hold supreme, and that Facebook's internet.org's, what's it called, zero rating?
Zero rating.
Yeah, the idea that an app that you could get free access to internet, i.e. some places of the internet, such as Facebook, such as, I think Flipkart was on it as well. There were some opportunities there, but the idea that India has an interesting landscape is something which I'm keeping an eye on, and it's a great opportunity as well as a risk factor when it comes to assessing India's future and potential in the application economy. Again, there are going to be 236 million users by the end of this year. It'll have 427 million smartphone users in its marketplace. Huge opportunity, huge market there to be taking advantage of. And there's a huge proportion of youth in its market, if I'm not wrong. We found about 18.1% of its population was aged between 15 and 24 years old. So if you look at that as sort of like the driver of future innovation and future entrepreneurship, and will drive the application economy, I think that's a pretty good statistic to be leaning on. Indonesia was number 10th, last in the index, moved up all the way to rank number 3. And while it had very poor scores in most of the parameters, some of the opportunities are that many people don't actually realize that they're using the internet when they've gotten access to things like Facebook or move on to apps. They don't. It's funny, even though for us, I think for those of us who have lived through the evolution of the application economy, we found that very strange, but that's what happens when countries like Indonesia leapfrog into the application economy. They've got an above average score for the number of people who use mobile internet and apps daily, and social networks. They've got the third largest population of mobile savvy smartphone users, 109 million, which looks set to grow. And they come in third in terms of the largest youth demographic in the region. Unfortunately, the risk for Indonesia, and this is fairly important for those of us who look at Indonesia as an opportunity, the risks really are that people's ideas face a lack of protection in India. There's more protection needed for innovation and ideas, and a higher penetration for for debit cards and credit cards and mobile payments is really needed in order to take advantage of the growth areas. If not, the revenues might actually not be recorded for Indonesia. So those are the risks and opportunities for Indonesia. For Japan, index rank was number 4, dropped to number 10th. Noteworthy is that they've got strong IP protection, great government support for technology and innovation, still needs improvement. I'm actually looking for a overarching ICT master plan or some sort of strategy out of Japan. I'm waiting for that to come up. So far, I haven't seen one coming up just yet. So I think that should be something which the Japanese government could consider putting on the agenda, so that so that it can be seen as a country where the government does take the lead in driving innovation. They've got great internet penetration, they've got great average mobile connection speeds. Unfortunately, they've got very low smartphone penetration. Again, this is interesting because of the Gara Kire phenomenon, the Galapagos phone phenomenon. They're not very well versed in the use of apps and social networking as of yet, but that could accelerate very quickly if people start adopting mobile phones, adopting smartphones in a different way. They've also got, unfortunately, the smallest youth demographic population in the region. This is nothing new. I think that Japan has always been very cognizant of the fact that it's got an aging population, but it is a challenge for Japan to overcome. Opportunities are that it's got excellent internet connectivity, great time to start a business, it's shorter than the regional average, so it's got great business agility scores. For Malaysia, number 6, moved down to number 9, unfortunately, after market potential. It scored in the mid-range across all the parameters, so if you notice, Malaysia's ranks came up in the middle most of the time. The strength of cybersecurity, however, was very, very interesting. Had strong strength of cybersecurity, possibly because there's been a lot of discussion with the community on improving cybersecurity. So that's been in the consciousness and in the mind of a lot of people. So the perception is that the strength of cybersecurity is extremely strong. Some of the challenges is that relative to the region, it's got a small market for smartphone users at the moment at 21 million, and the lowest number of people who use the mobile internet on a daily basis. Opportunities are that there's an above average percentage of youth population, and it stands that in good stead, to accelerate education and training for the next age of digital natives. For South Korea, was number 3, dropped down to number 7 after market potential acceleration. That was strong scores, extremely strong scores for the internet and mobile infrastructure. We took the scores for mobile internet infrastructure from the accompanying State of the Internet reports, which come out. So if you want to have a look at what is the current status, I think that I think that I saw it come in a couple of days ago. The first quarter of 2016 scores may have just come out, so you might want to have a look at see where that's at. But South Korea has always had excellent mobile connection speeds, smartphone penetrations, internet penetrations. The challenges are really the below average number of people who use a mobile internet on a daily basis, and those who use social networks. Of course, this could again be a question for the journalists here to ask. Maybe the statistics aren't actually calculating the local social networks which exist. So that is a bit of a question there. In terms of the opportunities, I think the government has been taking a lot of proactive steps, just not beyond just the Cloud Computing Promotion Act, but I think that there are acts that have been put in place to encourage banks, for example, the financial services industry, to take up cloud computing and other similar acts which have come out of South Korea. So that's very, very encouraging. And also there is a fairly large base of smartphone users within South Korea. I think you're one of the leaders. You've got leading globally leading local brands as well, Samsung and LG. So it's all coming out of South Korea. So that's a great opportunity there. Thailand Thailand was 8th, has now dropped to number 6. Has now moved up to number 6 after the Application Economy Index. It's got low scores in government use and support of technology, and also pretty low scores for internet and mobile penetration. So it really needs to improve on those scores as well as IP protection and the strength of its cybersecurity. However, I think that Thailand is pretty interesting because it's got about 10 or 6 or 10 digital economy bills which were tabled sometime last year. And I know that those are still in evolution. I believe that a draft, for example, of the Personal Data Privacy Protection Act has already been tabled, that also has happened with Indonesia. So those are the opportunities that Thailand has. A lot of things are changing at the moment in terms of government regulations. There's things like electronic transactions, which has also been tabled. And it's been ranked the 4th in its daily use of apps and the degree of social networks. It's a very innovative, very entrepreneurial society. I think if I remember correctly from another study of entrepreneurship in Thailand, they were ranked one of the most entrepreneurial in the region. More young people wanted to create and own their companies than any other place within Asia, which I thought was very, very encouraging because it shows that sort of youth spirit and it captures that youth zeitgeist, which is quite prevalent when you visit Thailand. So in terms of conclusions and moving ahead, what do we see? Again, I mentioned this earlier. The success characteristics in the application economy right now, up for grabs. We're not quite certain what's going to identify the winners and the losers. At this point in time, I think that the winners and the losers are going to be the people who are going to be able to move quickly into market, are going to adapt quickly into the market to capture market share. You want to be known as the app which has the most amount of users at this point in time. That is currently the symbol of success. So that's my second point, the main focus at this point should be to capture market share. The winners and losers really have yet to be determined. So it's up for grabs. Government and enterprises shouldn't ignore the risks that exist today. They should be preparing themselves, however, given all of the recommendations that we've already made in the report. You should identify some of the risk factors there and prepare proactively if you are to take advantage of the emerging economies. And one thing to note from all of the rankings that have moved up and moved down is that current success is no measure of future success. We have to be on your guard, be aware that things change very, very rapidly, and we have to be aware that the road ahead may be sunny and pretty like this picture shows, or it could be a bit of a question mark. I'm very, very thankful for your attention, very thankful for all of your questions. Look forward to continuing this discussion with you. I'm quite sure that some of the results are quite controversial, so happy to have a debate with you during the break or elsewhere. Thank you very much.
We have time for additional questions. Does anyone from the floor have? Just give me a second.
One question I have for you, that you have presented the APJ countries. So 2 countries which I see are not there. One is Bangladesh and the other is Vietnam. Now we know that Vietnam has a fairly high IT propensity. So why were these 2 countries not there? And Bangladesh, because it has a very large population as well. And the second question is, how do these rankings compare to United States? Where would United States be if it were on this map?
All right, thank you for the questions. Can I be very, very, very candid with the first one? I didn't do those 2 countries because Kelly didn't tell me to do the 2 countries. Sorry, Kelly, to throw you under the bus like this. But you're right. I mean, there are huge opportunities in the emerging markets, and South Asian markets are countries which I am personally, in my job with TRPC, we are looking at Bangladesh, and we did put a couple of other countries up. I think that they wanted to make sure that they focused on 10 countries, so that we just could say 10 countries. In the first instance, however, you make a very good point. Bangladesh is a huge emerging population. In my free time, haha, I'm also a member of the Internet Society, and there's a huge discussion right now on Bangladesh and how to connect the next billion users of the internet in Bangladesh. Not just Bangladesh, but in the world, but there's huge discussion there. So it's fantastic. The nice thing about using publicly available resources, and this segues quite nicely into your second question, the great thing about using publicly accessible indexes is that you can always go and replicate the study yourself. You can go into the report and into the different reports and see, okay, let's pull out the Bangladesh scores and let's put them in there, see where they fall in terms of the absolute scoring. And you can see where Bangladesh lies and where US lies. I didn't manage to do the comparison results with America and with the EU countries. However, I would say that they're somewhere in the middle. In another study, which I'm currently finishing up right now, the Cloud Readiness Index, I did do that for comparison studies with US and UK, UAE, Germany, and Peru, I think, or Brazil, I can't remember which was the Latin American country. And it showed that Asian countries are actually leading in a lot of readiness indexes. They're comparative in terms of the lead. So you'll see, that's the reason why we banned them. The America and Europe will appear within the top bands, but they won't be the top. For sure, they won't be the top. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Right. Just one last question.
Hi, it's just Alex again from ITWire. I mean, with the Mobile World Congress, there's been a lot of talk about 5G, and in fact Nokia reckons it'll have 5G out by 2017. I mean, presumably if all that's true, everything will just accelerate even faster and you know, make everything go at ludicrous speed, like they said in that movie Spaceballs.
So you have a question there?
Well, it's more, you want to make any comment yourself on 5G and how it's sort of, you know, seems to be accelerating. Even the introduction of new technology seems to be going faster. You know, not just software but hardware too.
Yeah, I do see that happening. 5G announcements are, most of the time, if you look at all the announcements that have come up, they're driven by the vendors. It's usually Nokia, Siemens Networks, or sorry, not Nokia, Siemens Networks, but Nokia that comes up with it, or Huawei that comes up with it, but however, you've got to look at how countries are adapting to that, because 5G networks 5G technologies may be available, but if you look at how Thailand's spectrum auctions have been going for 3G and 4G, you understand that there's a little bit of regulatory lag there when it comes to allocating frequency spectrum for use of those networks. So I would say that great that they're out there, great that innovation is being driven by the private sector. Governments need to move a little bit faster. Adoption won't happen as quick as we think. I think that the trials that are going on now are fantastic, but there will still be firstly, governments need to catch up. Secondly, I think that the industry needs some time to tweak its standards. As you know, for 4G networks, there were always questions around, should we go WiMAX, should we do LTE, what are the standards? So there's a little bit of sort of market adjustment that's going to be going on there. So I suspect that the adoption won't be as quick as we think. I'm happy that the innovation is happening. That's fantastic. I think is it Steve who can talk a little bit more about 5G? So maybe you can save those questions for him.
All right, thanks, Mian. So that's all the time we have. We have a quick break right now. We're ahead of time. So right now, if you have any more questions, you can catch Mian during the break. So this is the Twitter handle for our summit, CA-APJ Summit. So if you're taking any social media pictures, this is a hashtag you can use. So we have break items outside at the foyer waiting for you. So if you can have everyone back by 10:35.